if you're about to start a new limited company, coming up with a name can be one of the trickiest parts. As a business accountant whose team spends all day long helping new businesses get going, it's such a common moment where the choice of the name is the thing that's holding up the formation of the limited company. So I wanted to share a few thoughts on this that might help. So first thing to know is you don't have to have the same name as your brand name. So for example, I've had plenty of clients where their company's called one thing and their brand and their website's called another, and the two don't bear any resemblance. And that's actually completely fine. Often if you look at the legal names behind many of the well-known brands, they're actually pretty boring. For example, you don't see a Mars Bar Limited selling all of the Mars bars. Though fun fact, there is currently a company on Companies House with a similar name, but it's being liquidated. So don't stress about keeping the name similar, particularly if the one you want just isn't free. All that said, it's quite nice if they're similar. If you're asking clients or customers to pay into your bank directly, when they go on and search to pay you, when you put your account number in, a name will pop up. And I think sometimes it's quite nice to see the familiar brand name pop up. It kind of gives customers the confidence they're paying in the right place, but it really is a minor point. Now then, to check if a name might be available, the easiest thing to do is go to beta.companieshouse.gov.uk and you can just stick whatever you want in there. It's just generally how you search for companies. And you can see, is there another company called the same as the thing I want to call it? Or you might see that the actual name you want's fine, but there's one very similar and you think, bit too close for my liking. And if you see a company with the name you want, but it says dissolved on it, this is where a company's been in existence and then shut down. There's technically nothing stopping you reusing that name. But many owners will just avoid that. And the reason being is they're worried about potentially the risk of it being confused with an old company because you don't know kind of what's gone on in the history of that company. So you can do it, but people often avoid doing it. What they might do is maybe change the name slightly. So if it's going to be called ABC Landscaping, they might change it to like ABC Landscaping Solutions or something like that. So it's slightly different. Now, the other thing to consider when you're thinking about this name is that there are about 130 plus restricted terms that you can't include in names without permission. And there is actually a site you can go to where it gives you this big long list and you can see where you would have to write to get permission. Some of them are really obvious and you can see why they would be restricted. But where we see this most commonly is when somebody's name has that term in it. So for example, you might want to call yourself like BR Royal Limited or something like that because say your surname is Royal, but Royal's a restricted term, so you'd have to write and get authorization for that to be the case. Oddly, the one I see it most frequently with is King. It's quite a common surname. Now, with that out of the way, one of the other things that confuses people is whether they should have the word limited on the end or LTD. And the answer is whatever looks coolest. Legally, they're the same thing, but it does form part of your formal name, so pick whichever you think looks better. Personally, I quite like it when you've got a shorter name, you have the word limited, and when you've got a longer name, you put LTD on the end, but it is pure personal preference. And then finally, a really important thing to remember is if you don't like it, you can change it. There's a small fee to pay a Companies House, but it's pretty easy to do online. In fact, the most difficult thing with this is just the practical points later. So if you've got to go, because you've already been trading, you've got to go and change bank account names or supplier names and make sure your invoicing's changed, that kind of stuff. So it's good to try and pick something that you can stick with. So there you have it, a few quick tips. Please do share them with anybody you think needs to know this info, and I'll see you in the next one.